Hi, welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Going to be talking WWE SummerSlam. That's right, the full match card preview and predictions come up in this video. The event is expected to go, I think, around 6 hours long, including the kickoff. So there's a lot of matches to get through. I'll do my best to keep those predictions as brief as possible. But as for SummerSlam cards, I must admit, I wasn't so excited about this card, to be fair, looking at it, but at the same time, I do feel that for a go-home show this week for Raw and SmackDown, they're probably the best selection of go-home shows we've seen for WWE in quite some time. So it does add a bit more interest in the product that we're going to see this Sunday in Brooklyn. Fingers crossed that WWE can knock this one out of the park. So we'll start off with 3 kickoff matches. So we're going to start off with the Cruiserweight Championship match. Cedric Alexander going to be defending against Drew Gulak. For me, I'm going to say Cedric Alexander will retain the belt here. Now, there has been some tweets going around recently, or shall we say, has resurfaced an old tweet from Cedric Alexander. Perhaps not a very funny joke that was perhaps posted by him, but he has since put a new tweet out apologising for that. Nothing more seems to have come of it, and I don't think he's going to be punished for it. So I expect Cedric Alexander to retain the belt. And looking at 205 Live, I think that the next champion that's going to be groomed on that product is Lio Rush. And I think at the moment Lio Rush perhaps could be in the championship picture come Survivor Series. They're doing it right, because a lot of the people that tend to be thrown in 205 Live tend to be put straight at the top. Lio Rush is actually working his way up, and I think he's going to be more creditable when it comes to that point. So I think Cedric's going to hold the belt for a bit more time yet. I see him defeating Drew Gulak at the SummerSlam kickoff. Next will be a mixed tag team affair. Rusev Day and Lana will be taking on Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina Vega in a mixed tag team affair. Now, this is going to be very interesting, this match, because a lot of things involving Rusev and Lana recently have involved Aiden English, and Aiden English has been, by accident, costing Rusev and Lana matches, which has caused a little bit of tension between the two sides. It's almost to the point that Adrian English has had to be very apologetic and trying to get himself back in Rusev Day, but at the moment it seems to not be working. It'll be interesting to see how it's going to play out into this match. Now, for a prediction, I'm going to go with Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina Vega to pick up the win. The question is how they're going to pick up the win, and I do see Aiden English being involved once again. Now, can we see the same thing we've seen for the last few weeks, where Aiden English seems to get involved and accidentally cost Rusev Day, or will he actually go and do it on purpose this time? It would be kind of interesting to see a storyline develop where he's almost sick and tired of having to try and fight his way back into Rusev Day, and that could really lead to a storyline between the two having a match going forward with Aiden English and Rusev. So I think that would be a very interesting concept to happen. We'll have to wait and see how it will happen. Personally, for me, I'm not so convinced that WWE will do it where it's on purpose, but I do see a match in the future for Rusev and Aiden English. The last match for the kickoff then will be the B team defending against the Revival. Now, if you've heard anything that I've done on Facebook Live recently, you would know that I'm desperate for the Revival to save the tag team division. But being on the kickoff, I'm not so convinced they're going to win the belts. What I do feel is that the B team seem to win a lot of the time by fluke. It doesn't seem to be on purpose. They seem to be in the right place at the right time. Now, for the gimmick, I'm not so opposed to it. I've not hated the B team, but I just kind of feel that I want a bit more serious at the top of the tag team division. It just feels that the whole division right now is being treated as a joke. I mean, the Authors of Pain seem to be turning into the Ascension. It's a very worrying time if you're an AOP fan. But going with this tag team match itself, I would like to see the Revival pick up the belts. But I do think, as I say, it's being on the kickoff, I see that the B team will probably win. But I have this sneaky suspicion that I think the Revival will beat tag team champions very, very soon, perhaps even the night after SummerSlam. So what I will say is I do think the Revival are going to pick up the belts in Brooklyn. I'm just not so sure it's going to be on this show. So let's go to the main card then of SummerSlam. I'm going to start off with the Tag Team Championship match for SmackDown Live. The Bludgeon Brothers versus The New Day. Now, of course, there was a rumor going around a long time ago that WWE wanted The New Day to become the most reigns of Tag Team Champions as well as the longest reigning. Well, they have the longest reigning hold of the championship belts, but they would need quite a few more title wins to be that team that has the most. I believe the Dudley Boys are the ones that are top tier with 9 current tag team title reigns in WWE. I believe the New Day are on 4 or 5 at the moment, so they're around halfway. But if I'm going to put a prediction on this match, I see the Bludgeon Brothers picking up the win here. I don't think this is the right time. The Bludgeon Brothers have been on such a roll. I just don't see them dropping the belts to the New Day. And I think if the New Day were to win, I'm not quite sure where they would go, and I don't know where the Bludgeon Brothers would go. I don't see anything fresh happening in the tag team division. We've already seen the New Day take on Sanity in a mini feud. We've already seen it against the Bar. The Bludgeon Brothers have a lot more teams that they can be fighting with in the tag team division for the tag team championship. So I think the Bludgeon Brothers are going to retain on this occasion. Next, we'll look at Finn Balor versus Constable Baron Corbin. The rubber match between the two. Finn Balor winning at Extreme Rules. Baron Corbin winning on Monday Night Raw. It's the perfect time to bring back the Demon, but I don't see it happening. The Demon hasn't even been mentioned. And also, we haven't seen it since last year, which, if I'm not mistaken, it was the TLC match. Or TLC pay-per-view, should I say, against AJ Styles, where it was advertised that it would be the Demon Finn Balor. The only other time before that, in recent memory, I believe, was the SummerSlam against Bray Wyatt a year ago. So we're talking, it's nearly a full calendar year since we've seen the Demon King. I don't see him coming back in this instance, although I do think it would bring a big pop to the crowd. Nonetheless, I'll give the prediction for the match. Finn Balor needs this win the most of the two. Baron Corbin doing pretty well in his Constable gimmick. He's getting some good TV time, and I can see perhaps even a match with Kurt Angle down the line. But for right now, Finn Balor, if he is going to be continuing on, I think that maybe he could be in the Intercontinental Championship picture after SummerSlam, should he pick up the win. I think that Finn Balor needs this victory and will pick up the W. Next, let's look at the United States Championship match. Shinsuke Nakamura defending against Jeff Hardy. Now, this is an underlining kind of part, really, of what the real feud is. Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton seems to be the main feud here. Of course, it seems a bit sad, really, that United States Champion is almost the third wheel in this storyline. I know Nakamura's not perfect at English, but I like the way that they kind of what they did with him at the start of the summer. His gimmick really seemed to work. The facials, the heel turn, the me no speak English. I kind of think that it still kind of worked with Shinsuke, but I'm surprised it's not a triple threat at this match, but you do feel Randy Orton's going to be involved in some way or form. I think they're going to do it slightly differently, though, to how they've done it previously. I think Jeff Hardy's going to be ready for it. I think he's going to see it coming. I think he's going to best Randy Orton, but I don't think that means he'll get the best of Nakamura. I can see Nakamura retaining perhaps a knee to face and still United States Champion. Next, I will look at Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. Now, a match that WWE are calling 8 years in the making, and certainly a match I'm very much looking forward to. I do believe that this could be a first of many with these two. I think they're going to do the proper rivalry here, and they're going to make the most of it. And two long-standing WWE superstars as well. I mean, Daniel Bryan, like I say, he's been there for 8 years. The Miz, I believe, 2006, so over 12 years. It's really good to see these two finally going to be hooking it up. I know many people were hoping it would be saved to WrestleMania. For me, the longer this was dragged out, for me, just felt like the less it was important. I kind of feel Daniel Bryan got The Miz there so he could punch The Miz in the face. That was pretty much the line that was going around at the time when it was mentioned with those two before. So The Miz was brought on SmackDown Live and them kept apart for like a couple of months. It just didn't really add up for me, if I'm being perfectly honest. I know Daniel Bryan had the team Hell No, was trying to get into the championship picture, had the greatest Royal Rumble showcase as well. But for me, it feels that this match needs to happen now. And I think this rivalry could go on even all the way to Survivor Series, or perhaps even for the rest of the calendar year. For that reason, I think The Miz is going to steal one. I think that will be the perfect way to continue this feud going forward. But I do think it would be nice to see Daniel Bryan pick up the victory. I do think that would be the best feel-good moment for this card. But I just have a feeling that because of the fact that nothing... You normally have something to go on as well with the last SmackDown to see who's got the edge going into the event. No one had that with that video package, which is brilliant. So it's interesting to see where this will lead to. So for me at the moment, I think that this is not going to be a one and done. I think that there's too much riding on this, and I think that there is more writing that can be used going forward for what happens at SummerSlam. So I expect maybe a pull of the tights, maybe something controversial. The Miz is going to steal one and pick up the W. Next, we'll look at the SmackDown Live Women's Championship, a triple threat match. Carmella, the champion, defending against Becky Lynch, and included now Charlotte Flair. Now, of course, Becky Lynch originally getting the title match because she beat Carmella. Charlotte Flair then added to the match because she also beat Carmella. Makes you wonder, does Carmella sneak away with the championship here? My only feeling here is that Becky Lynch got the best on the last SmackDown going into this. Also, I think for storyline purposes, I think Becky Lynch was kind of a bit, you can see, disappointed that her match was turned into a triple threat match. She's waited a long time for her opportunity to now see her not even get a fair one-on-one match. She's now in a triple threat match. It's going to be interesting to see where this will lead. And I think if she loses, particularly either way, she will be blaming Charlotte Flair here. And I think that we could have a slow burn to a heel turn, and perhaps even Charlotte versus Becky coming to the first ever women's pay-per-view, which will be Evolution. Now, to give an idea of where this could go with the Evolution pay-per-view coming up, you do wonder, when you look at the poster, if they're going to want the biggest stars as the champions. So that makes me wonder, would Charlotte Flair pick up the victory here? It's a real toss-up between Carmella and Charlotte for who will walk away as champion here. And I'm going to say at this particular moment that I think Charlotte Flair is going to become the champion, because I think there's still time. If she's going to be headlining WrestleMania next year with Ronda Rousey, there is time for her to be the champion and drop the belt and perhaps go into the Royal Rumble. She's got time here to be the champion and have some interesting programs going forward. I feel Carmella's time as champion is done. I'm not a Carmella hater. I do believe Mella is money. I think that she is underrated and doesn't get the praise that she deserves, really. Yes, she's not a 5-star match caliber athlete, but what I would say is that she has got the gimmick and she's got the personality, and she knows how to get people to hate her. And I think that that makes her very creditable. And I think she's done overall pretty well as the women's champion for SmackDown. The only thing I would say is, though, it's starting to really wear thin now. She hasn't had the credible wins that makes you think that she's a dominant champion. So somewhere along the line, she has to drop that belt unless she's going to start picking up some big victories. So for me, she's going to drop the belt here. And I think what would be even more interesting is that if Becky Lynch is the one that's beaten, perhaps maybe blindsided, maybe to then take the fall for her then disappointment that Charlotte Flair picks up the win. But I do think, also saying that, I may counteract myself here. If Carmella's the one that taps out and Becky Lynch is not involved in the decision, maybe that would make even more interest for the Charlotte and Becky feud. So I'm going to go for that instead. I think that Charlotte will win, and I think that Carmella is going to be one tapping to the figure eight to the disappointment of Becky Lynch. We've touched on the Women's Championship match for SmackDown. Let's go for Raw then, shall we? Alexa Bliss going to be defending against Ronda Rousey. The first match that was actually signed for the SummerSlam card. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, is it too soon for Ronda Rousey? See, here's the thing that I'm going to answer that question right now with, is that Ronda Rousey has already been involved in one title match and didn't get the job done. Now, of course, she was close to before Alexa Bliss cashed in the Money in the Bank, causing herself to become champion and Ronda Rousey not to become champion. We look at that now and fast forward to here. If Ronda Rousey is screwed out of the belt again, it looks like it's going to take her 2-3 goes to even get the championship. I think that she's meant to be a very dominant, badass woman, the baddest woman on the planet. Well, if she's meant to be that bad, she should be able to get the job done. And I think she will get the job done here. I think that Alexa Bliss only ever won the belt on this occasion to actually put over Ronda Rousey. And a lot of people give Bliss a lot of hate as well. Again, I'm a big fan of Alexa Bliss. I think she's done phenomenal since she's been on the main roster, SmackDown and Raw. She's exceeded expectations beyond anyone's wildest dreams. 5-time women's champion on both shows. She's been a creditable champion as well. She's carried the brands that she's been the champion of. But now it's time to pass over the torch. It's time to give the belt to Ronda Rousey. Let's see what she can do with it. Ronda Rousey is a star. And again, imagine the Evolution poster. Ronda Rousey with the championship. The event will sell itself, and Ronda Rousey will main event that pay-per-view. Will she get the match with Alexa Bliss when it comes to Evolution pay-per-view? We'll have to wait and see. It's still a couple of months down the line. So maybe it could be someone like Natalya that could be facing Rousey instead, or Nia Jax. We'll have to wait and see. Next then, we will look at the Intercontinental Championship, which is certainly got a lot of intrigue going with it now to what it had perhaps just a few days ago. Dolph Ziggler with Drew McIntyre in his corner against Seth Rollins with Dean Ambrose in his corner. Dean Ambrose returning on Raw, a lot more jacked Dean Ambrose, a lot more intense Dean Ambrose. Probably a questionable barber decision as well with the haircut. I'm sure that's probably why he was a bit miserable. But being honest though, I think Dean Ambrose looks like a star here. And I really think that Dean Ambrose could go to the top on his return, looking at the current state of the Raw sort of singles division. I think he's got a potential to go all the way back to the top, especially if he keeps that intensity up and not play the goofball that he was doing as a lunatic fringe before he got himself injured. But looking into the match itself and how it's going to play out, the fan in me wants to see Dean Ambrose cost Seth Rollins. He wants to see the heel turn. I think there's a chance it can happen, but I will say is that I think it will happen. The only question mark is, will it be at SummerSlam? I'm not so convinced it's going to be at SummerSlam. I do feel there's going to be some way that Dolph Ziggler is going to retain this Intercontinental Championship, but I'm not convinced he's going to win the match. I think Seth Rollins will win the match, but perhaps for the feel-good moment as well, maybe it's nice if Dean Ambrose doesn't turn heel, that Rollins wins the belt. But at the same time, I think there needs to be a false finish somewhere here. So I think Ziggler is going to keep the belt. I think that Rollins and Ambrose don't need it if they're going to go on to perhaps become a tag team maybe going forward, or perhaps maybe the heel turn. They don't need the Intercontinental Championship in this picture. I think Ziggler perhaps could remain champion, take on the likes of Finn Balor. I think that maybe a heel turn for Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, and they can close that chapter once and for all. The other question I have is if WWE is to pull this trigger or not, is if they think they can get some tag team matches out of this. Because, of course, Rollins and Ambrose against Ziggler and McIntyre would make some great tag team matches. The question is, do they want to do that, or do they want to go straight in with the heel turn? I think the moment for the heel turn would be Sunday. I think that it would get the most heat. I think that you get the biggest pop. The crowd will go crazy. And I think you have a mega hot feud to go into the winter. The fact that Dean Ambrose could say, look, Seth Rollins never looked out for him while he was out injured all those months, just concentrated on his own career. They just left him aside of the Shield as if he was the weak member of the Shield. Perhaps Dean Ambrose could get the best of it, and then maybe could go to the top of the card against like a Roman Reigns. I think that certainly would have a lot of potential, particularly. But we'll have to wait and see how that's going to play out. Next, let's look at the WWE Championship match, AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. Now, of course, many would say you would have dreamt of this many years ago. It would never be possible in many people's eyes. Not only is the match happening on WWE pay-per-view, it's also happening for the WWE Championship. Who would have thought it? Well, it's happening, and to be honest with you, I've quite enjoyed the build-up for this one. It's been quite discreet when you look at some of the matches that are taking place at SummerSlam, but bringing AJ Styles' family into it, a good old sort of, it really puts the pressure on. It really makes you feel that this is going to be an intense rivalry, and perhaps maybe the start of something as well, rather than just happening at this one show, that maybe we could get this maybe for 2 or 3. My feeling is, though, looking at it, that would make sense then perhaps for a new champion, but I just have this feeling that AJ Styles is going to be a champion for a long time still. I mean, of course, he is the cover for the 2K next feature game that's going to be coming out on the consoles in October. As well as that, he's getting closer and closer to becoming beating CM Punk's 434-day record. I believe at the moment he's at 9 months, so if he goes to around January Royal Rumble time, he should surpass that. There is, of course, as well the idea that maybe he could even go champion as well as long as next year's WrestleMania. We have to wait and see. But I think that AJ Styles is going to retain the belt here and is going to be champion. But how this match is going to finish, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, if it's probably not going to be the main event, so it's probably going to be shoved somewhere in the middle of the card. I can see perhaps a bit of shenanigans here and this not being a clean finish, but I reckon AJ Styles does retain the championship and does go forward to the next event, perhaps to take on Samoa Joe, as this rivalry will intense further. Next, we'll look at the Money in the Bank match briefcase that's going to be on the line. That's right, you don't normally get this very often. It's been, I believe, 6 years since we last had this. Of course, it was Dolph Ziggler and John Cena in the ladder match that was back in TLC 2012. And if you want to go as far back as 2007, I believe, is the last time that the Money in the Bank briefcase was actually won by a competitor and not actually cashed in by the competitor. It was actually Mr. Kennedy who won the briefcase at WrestleMania 23. and was going to cash it in at WrestleMania 24. But of course, I think he picked up an injury, plans changed, and he dropped the briefcase to Edge, who then went on to cash it in on the following SmackDown that same week. So could we see any of those scenarios take place here, as we see for the first time in, like I say, in over 6 years, that the Money in the Bank briefcase is going to be on the line? The holder, Braun Strowman, is going to defend the briefcase against Kevin Owens. And of course, this briefcase can change hands if there is a count-out or a disqualification, which means basically it's a normal match, but not like a title match. The briefcase can change hands under any circumstances. Either win and keep the case, or lose and lose the case. It's going to be very interesting to see how it's going to play out. And of course, it rolls in nicely for what you think can happen in the main event. Now, they've teased it all the way through and shown every scenario. Braun Strowman losing a DQ, losing by countout. It's going to be interesting to see how they're going to do it at the event. It makes you almost think that it's not going to happen and Braun Strowman will keep hold of the briefcase. But of course, there has been a rumour going around that at Hell in a Cell, Roman Reigns will be taking on Kevin Owens. Now, is that going to be Hell in a Cell match? We'll have to wait and see. Will it be for the Universal Championship? We'll have to wait and see again. Now, for the bit of a lacklustre build we've had with the two main matches, I almost thought at the start it would have made sense that we had changed this into a fatal four-way. Maybe Braun Strowman, when he learned that he was going to have to defend this, could have cashed in the briefcase and beat Brock Lesnar when he was there on Raw a few weeks ago, and we could have changed this into a fatal four-way with Reigns, Owens, Strowman and Lesnar. But that wasn't to be the case. It does make you wonder then, maybe if one of these guys wins on the night, will they cash it in on the end of the night? Which is why I've done these last two matches together. So first and foremost, if Kevin Owens was to actually win, I think it would have to be, again, by shenanigans. I think it can only be a DQ. It would be interesting to see if Jinder Mahal is actually interfering in this match. That would be very interesting to see, because I could see that possibly happening, and maybe the referee at some point maybe have to use the discretion whether he wants to class that as a DQ or not. Now, before I go into my actual prediction, one thing that I did think as a suggestion before this week's Raw was the idea that maybe Kevin Owens could become the Money in the Bank holder and actually cash in and the main event, thanks to Paul Heyman, become the next Paul Heyman guy. Now, if Brock Lesnar is to leave after SummerSlam, this would give Paul Heyman a ready-made superstar, someone that could be elevated back to the top, arguably where Kevin Owens perhaps belongs. Maybe he would become more the prize fighter once again, rather than the cowardish comedy heel that he's sort of become over the last couple of years. Maybe he could be more that guy that came to the main roster from NXT 3 years ago that faced John Cena. But to actually go with a prediction, with Lesnar actually coming back, and you see there was a ruse with him and Heyman for the past 2 or 3 weeks, it makes me feel that that's not going to happen. I mean, there still is a potential that maybe Heyman is playing the cards and is going to screw Lesnar rather than actually screw Reigns. But it feels now with the tease done on Raw that perhaps maybe it's not going to happen. And I kind of felt with Raw with them too that cliffhanger should have been left to SummerSlam. But I'll come on to Reigns and Lesnar in a second to go with that. I actually think that Braun Strowman is actually going to retain the briefcase. And if we're going to ask for a cash-in as well, I don't think it's going to happen. I've got this funny feeling, and this is very different to what I thought I would have said to you a few days ago, but coming into the event now, I think Braun Strowman is going to keep the Money in the Bank, and I kind of hope that when he does cash in, it will be announced ahead of time rather than actually as a sort of moment that's going to spoil things. But it was something that a lot of people thought would happen going forward, and I felt that was what was going to happen at Money in the Bank. But I'm starting to wonder if it's going to now, and here is my reason why. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. This match is probably going to get booed heavily. I don't think that a lot of people want to see it. I think this past week on Raw, with the pepper spray and the potential tease of an alliance, I think that alliance, if that had carried over to SummerSlam and into the match itself, I think would have perhaps given a bit of intrigue in the match between Reigns and Lesnar finally. But it's been done so many times this match, I think it's going to go down not very well. But I'm going to say what I think needs to happen, and I know that it's not really a popular decision, and trust me when I say this, I don't really feel this way either, but I think that Roman Reigns needs to win and needs to hold the belt for a period of time. Now, my reason for saying this is because the experiment has been teased and the trigger is meant to have been pulled now for quite a while. and it feels to me that WWE just haven't really been able to pull that trigger. They've always got cold feet at the last minute, and I think if Roman Reigns is to lose again to Brock Lesnar, there's no recovery for Reigns of when it comes to him. Whatever he does in his career is to be the guy. If WWE want him to be the guy, they should push him to be the guy and have him hold the belt for the next few months and see where it goes. He'll either sink or he'll swim, and I would love to see it in a heel turn capacity, but I don't see that happening. And it sounds a bit depressing saying it, I know, but I think that that's probably the thing that needs to happen, because once WWE perhaps have gone out of the system, maybe they might move on and give someone else a chance. Because if we're being brutally honest, Braun Strowman, his time was at WrestleMania. He should have won the belt around then. Instead, we had this Lesnar and Reigns match. Arguably, Lesnar should have had dropped this belt a long time ago. We've had this done once. We didn't need it done again. With him holding the championship and only doing spare appearances here and there. There is rumour going around actually this afternoon that Lesnar is expected to have a meeting with officials on Sunday before the SummerSlam event. I wonder if there's going to be an agreement to extend his run before he goes back to UFC. If he wins the match, he will go to UFC with the Universal Championship and probably try to get both belts, but to expect that if he loses that, he will drop the belt straight away. I think WWE will not take the chance. I think he's going to drop the belt beforehand. So either way, Lesnar does not leave SummerSlam as Universal Champion. My prediction to win this will be Roman Reigns, and I don't think there'll be a cash-in either. Now, before to maybe hit the dislike button, just before we close this video off, I'd just say I would do it very differently if it was me booking this myself. As I say, I would have turned this into a Fatal 4-Way many weeks ago. I would have had Braun Strowman cash that money in the bank and be in the championship position going in. It's a Fatal 4 with Owens, Reigns and Lesnar. Or I think the more likely one I would have done most recently would have been Kevin Owens to get the briefcase and Paul Heyman to secretly have a new Heyman guy. I think that would be the best way out the scenario to give the fans something to go home happy. But those are what I would have done. Of course, I've now given you my predictions for the card itself. As I say, Roman Reigns to win, Braun Strowman also to win. Maybe they will rekindle their feud later in the year. We'll have to wait and see how that will play out. But that's SummerSlam 2018 there for you. All the matches, all the predictions. It's been a long video, so I'm not going to keep you too much longer. But do check out my NXT preview and predictions video. Take care, subscribe, like and share the video. Enjoy SummerSlam, regardless of the results. I'll see you guys next time here on SCW.